On January 1st, 2020, there were 300,000 people making content on OnlyFans. At the
Wow.
beginning of this year, January 2025, as we film this, the CEO came out and said they had over 4 million content creators.
Really, I'm little bit nervous because I never talk about this kind of the topic. This is a really serious problem that I really wanted to share. As per the report in the 2023 study, the journal Behavior Addiction reports that 6% of all the internet users shows the sign of compulsive porn use. So why the pornography addiction still treated as a non-issue by the mainstream media?
Because everybody still wants to pretend that they don't look at it. If you look at porn, you're a pervert.
So, hello, Joshua. Welcome back.
Hello.
And how are you today? And welcome to the Shami Show.
Thank you so much, Samir. I appreciate you inviting me on, and I am having a wonderful day. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Today, really, I'm little bit nervous because I never talk about this kind of the topic. This is the first time I'm talking to you. I'm anybody persons that this is a really serious problem that I really wanted to share. So my first question is that as per the report in the 2023 study, the journal Behavior Addiction reports that 6% of all the internet users shows the sign of compulsive porn use. That's potentially over, like we can say, the 300 million people globally. So why the pornography addiction still treated as a non-issue by the mainstream media when it's clearly a silent global epidemic?
Because everybody still wants to pretend that they don't look at it.
I agree.
Everybody still wants to hold up certain cultural stereotypes that we have had. That if you look at porn, you're a pervert. If you look at porn, you're of low moral standing. If you look at porn, you don't have a God. You don't have a good life. You don't have a partner. You don't have children. You don't have a good job. We like to have this stereotype of a porn user being a 19-year-old guy living in his mom's basement who has never kissed a girl in real life. And
Right.
that's just not who porn addicts are. Much like alcoholics, much like drug addicts, much like people who have issues with food, a porn addict can be anybody. And I've seen this in my coaching. People from 18 years old up into their 70s, men, women, conservative, liberal, every religion, every color, every corner of the globe. There is nobody who is immune from this. And the mainstream media is still very Puritan. It still doesn't want to offend anybody. And pornography is one of those words, like Hitler or like pedophile, that if you say out loud, you worry people are going to think that you are endorsing it. So just by saying the word pornography, oh, you're able to say that word. That must mean you're okay with it. That must mean you like it. But the reality is, you talk about 6% being compulsive addicted users. I think that may even be a little low at this point. But a study that was done not too long ago showed that, and this doesn't necessarily mean addiction, but this shows you how many people look at pornography.
agree.
Of men around the globe who have access to the internet, 91% look at pornography at least once a month.
Hmm.
When it comes to women, 60% who have access to the internet look at pornography once a month. 9 out of 10 men, 6 out of 10 women. If you truly don't look at pornography, you're in the minority these days. But we still like to pretend it's only 2 or 3% of people who really look at it. That can't be, because if 30% of our internet traffic is pornography, it's not just 2 or 3% of people looking.
I agree. So right now the problem is that no one wants to admit that one also, right? Now you are also a respected politician, the publisher. You are a family man, and still I'm sure that maybe that you have also addicted to that porn user.
Absolutely.
What's the dark truth about the high functioning addicts that dual lives, and even where your closest people didn't see about it?
Well, my story is that we can get into, how I became a porn addict, but the last 10 years of my life that I was an addict, and I was a porn addict for 24 years, but I was also an alcoholic for 22 years.
Wow.
And it's very hard to hide alcoholism. You slur your words, you smell like alcohol, you stumble. It's very hard to hide that from other people.
I agree.
When you're a porn addict, it's mostly done in private. Nobody knows you're doing this. You can't spot a porn addict just by looking at them. And in my case, being the alcoholic, everybody was looking out for that. When it came to the pornography, if you're not looking for the signs, you're not going to see them. And that's what makes it so easy for so many people to hide it for so long. And I think that also keeps so many people in self-denial that, well, nobody's talking to me about this. This is just something I do. It can't be bad. It's not drugs. It's not so many of these other things we have been taught about from childhood forward. So it must be okay. And that's a big reason why, along with my coaching, I spend so much time coming onto podcasts and writing books and doing as much media as I can, because education is the key to this at this point.
So when do you call this is called addiction? Once a month is called addiction, or it could be the daily basis?
I don't believe there is a strict formula for it. Addiction is addiction, because what's important to understand for people who aren't addicts is that the addict mind is not the same. It doesn't have the same priorities. It doesn't have the same survival skills. For me, the definition of addiction across the board is that you are engaged in an activity that, despite understanding it's going to end badly and have negative consequences, you do not have the internal mechanism to stop. That's addiction for me. Now, when it comes to specific addictions, you have to look at the symptoms, because addiction is just a label. It's just a word. If you called me an addict in Portuguese, I don't know what you're saying. It's just a word. You have to look at the symptoms and then apply how many symptoms do you have. And that can tell you if you're an addict or not. And once you recognize there is an addiction, there is a compulsion, whatever you want to call it, then it's up to you to go and get some help. I have a TikTok video that's called The 11 Symptoms of Porn Addiction. And I always tell people before I send them to it, it doesn't matter if you're a porn addict. It matters if you're going to do something about it.
Right, agree. Even the neuroscience says that the watching a porn releases the dopamine, right? That surge is the comparable to the cocaine.
Absolutely.
So why do we treat the drug addict as a patient, but the porn addict as a perverts or the punchlines?
It's just a matter of timing. You can go back even before drugs. In the 1920s, if you were an alcoholic, they would put you in a sanitarium. They thought you had a personality disorder. It was only through studying, it was only through examining people who were alcoholics that they were able to recognize that this was something else. The same thing with drugs. We have known about cocaine since, the 1930s when they were putting it in Coca-Cola.
Right.
What do you think the Coca means? It's short for cocaine. We learned more that cocaine is not good for you. It takes time. Pornography has not really been on everybody's radar for two reasons. Up until the internet, it was only marketed to straight white men because that was the market that the pornographers could trust. You weren't having women walking into adult theaters. You weren't having people of color. You weren't having religious people walk into adult bookstores. But what happened was the internet came along. And more importantly than that, high-speed internet came along. So all of those people who were afraid to go and purchase or consume pornography now have the ability to do it at home, completely private. So more people are going to do it. It exploded when we started to get high-speed internet. And we have to remember back from the 1960s all the way up through the late 90s, it was expensive to make porn. The companies made porn movies with actors, with sets. They had to make prints of those films, just like going to see the movies today. Whether you go to Lilo and Stitch or one of the Marvel movies, these are expensive to make. You have to make copies, send them out to theaters, you put them on videotape. It costs a lot of money to make pornography back then. Because of the internet, it doesn't cost very much to make pornography now. So if I want to target just lesbian women, if I want to target just people who like to watch old people or people wearing diapers or something that's very, very on the edge of what a lot of people consume, you can still make that very unique hardcore content and still find an audience because it doesn't cost so much to make it. That's what happened, is that I think we saw a lot of people for the first time be able to get on the internet, have their pornography delivered to them, and they were able to explore some of the more interesting genres. And that's where we find ourselves today. We give every 10-year-old the greatest porn computer ever created with the smartphone and say good luck. All of us, the rest of us, are walking around with the greatest porn computer ever in our pocket.
I agree. Even right now, the social media is also spreading so much. It's not a complete, say that it's a hardcore pornography, but somehow, let's say 70-80%, they are showing the sexual kind of things, right? When you open the Instagram, you can see many, even right now I say the women or the men's, everyone's that they wants to more popular, so they wants to show their body parts and everything, right? So they want to have the more clicks, more viewership, right? So that's why they want to spread more kind of things. So that's why Instagram or you say TikTok, they are spreading more of that one. They are spreading more sexual content right now.
And it's amazing how many people have got into the do-it-yourself porn creation industry. Between campsites, OnlyFans, these kinds of things. This is what the pandemic did. On January 1st, 2020, there were 300,000 people making content on OnlyFans. At the beginning of this year, January 2025, as we film this, The CEO came out and said they had over 4 million content creators.
Wow.
We went from one site, we went from 300,000 people making pornography to 4 million people making pornography. If all of the other sites that have that, if all of the cam sites have that kind of growth,
Your voice is not coming, sir. No. Can you speak now?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now.
Okay, so let me restart that and you can edit. The vast majority of people who are now making pornography, it becomes socially acceptable. OnlyFans and these cam sites did the one thing that never happened during my pornography use. They broke down the final wall to provide porn of people you know.
Exactly.
And a lot of these people in our society now, it's acceptable. So you may have friends who are like, oh, go look at my OnlyFans. When I was growing up, I always wondered, what would it be like to see somebody I know in Playboy magazine?
Right.
And now just about everybody out there knows somebody doing OnlyFans and can go look at that stuff. It is just such a different world because of technology, and it needs more study. It needs more people. To go back to your question about the drugs, about the alcohol, it's only been 25 years since high-speed internet, and we need much more study. It's happening, but the medical community takes, especially in America, takes its sweet time deciding something's a problem. I mentioned alcoholism in the 1920s. It wasn't until the 1970s that the psychiatric community started to recognize alcohol use disorder as a real thing. It took 50 years for them to accept it.
Exactly.
So it's probably going to take another 20 or 30 years before the medical community recognizes it, although most of the therapists, most of the doctors that I talk to now absolutely believe it's real.
Right, agree. Right now, even though that OnlyFans, many teens or many young generation, I can say, that even the Gen Zs, they are jumping to the OnlyFans, right?
Yeah.
And especially they are calling the donations.
Yes.
It's really weird. Exactly. Now, do you think that all this because of the happening that youth is becoming spoiled, or there are no sex educations provided, that's why they are jumping into that one, or they want to earn as quickest earn as they want? Because as you know that right now how the market is, everyone is like struggling for the jobs, for the business and everything, and here you don't need to do much thing, just you need to expose yourself, and you have to take the donations. If many people, suppose if you have the 1 million followers, even the one person's give you the $1, you have already $1 million, and you're doing nothing, just you are exposing yourself.
And there are many people in today's day and age, and I've interviewed them. I had a woman who started doing OnlyFans during the pandemic. I interviewed many people for a book I wrote, and she said flat out, if I can get 200 guys to spend $10 to see my breasts or another part, if I can get 200 guys to spend $5 on that, I made $1,000 today.
Exactly.
Why am I going to go be a waitress? Why am I going to go work in a shop? Why am I going to go to college to do something when if I can make $1,000 a day, and that's 2 hours, 3 hours of work, why should I go join that other life? if I don't have a problem exposing myself,
Hmm.
and I think we raise kids with social media these days that gets increasingly
Hmm.
more naked. You know, you can look at almost any 15 or 16-year-old boy or girl's Instagram, and you're going
Hmm.
to see pictures of them wearing next to nothing at the beach or with other
Exactly.
people. And
Yeah.
if what is the difference in a 17-year-old girl the week before her 18th birthday?
Hmm.
What's the difference between her wearing her bikini top and on her 18th birthday taking it off? Well, if it's $1,000,
Hmm.
she may not have a problem with it. I think that's what's happening, is that it's simply that society, and social media has a lot to do with this, does not have, or Gen Z does not have a lot of the hangups with nudity, does not have a lot of hangups with sexuality. The reality is, the 5-year age group that watches the most pornography in this world is 12 to 17.
Hmm. Right. Agree.
But we also have to understand this, and this is when you look at the scientific side of it. It is completely normal around the time of puberty to be interested and curious about depictions of sexuality. It's just that for generations, we didn't have access to these depictions of sexuality. Now,
Yeah.
because 12-year-old Johnny has his smartphone, he can watch people have sex.
Exactly.
And if you're going through puberty, what a great treat to be able to watch that. It's naked
Exactly.
people doing naked stuff. Yay!
They are enjoying.
Unfortunately, there's a percentage of these boys and girls
Hmm.
who use it as a coping mechanism instead of a sexual tool. They use it as a coping mechanism, and that's when you go down the road of addiction. And what's horrible about addiction is kids don't recognize what's happening. 95% of my clients became porn addicts before the age of 16.
Wow.
But they're not going to talk to anybody about it. They're not
Hmm.
going to recognize or say they're doing something wrong. They don't understand about addiction and the brain chemistry. They just know, I can look at naked people, I can touch myself. This feels great because of those chemicals. And
Exactly.
that's why we find ourselves where we are today. You know, I understand why they want to look at pornography.
Hmm.
It's a natural part of our sexuality. Unfortunately, pornography does take a percentage and turns them into a world of unhealthy sexuality.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to watch out for, because kids are now watching, the average kid, addict or not, is seeing between 750 and 2,000 hours of pornography before they turn 18.
Wow. Yeah.
That's a lot more sex education than school ever gave them.
Exactly. That's the problem, because school or the parents never wants to talk about that one. So that's why they are. I know that because of the age, the 16 to 18, because of that hormonal changes and everything, they want to be curious what is happening in their body. And suppose if one parent's asking to that, didn't you watch a porn or didn't you watch anything kind of things? They want to curious and they immediately start watching, and after they get addicted, so they get into the cycle,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Now you have already worked with more than 500 individuals, right?
Yeah.
So what's the most shocking transformation you have witnessed for someone who nearly lost everything to porn and either made it out or didn't?
I am working with a woman who I have worked with for 2 years. She was grotesquely violated repeatedly for many years by her father sexually.
Oh my God.
One of the ways that she has learned, when I met her, Nobody in her family knew about it. And she had a big pornography problem because while it seems counterintuitive, that's how she dealt with it. She gave herself pleasure looking at this stuff because when she was young, she put together if her father liked doing this with her, she should probably like doing it. And this worked in her head. And again, there's not a lot of rationalization when you come to massive trauma. She rationalized that that was the way for her to feel better. And as she got older, I don't want to say she was promiscuous, but she was very giving with photos of herself, nudes to people. She was somewhat promiscuous with people during little parts because that's how she knew affection. That's how she knew attention. And in the 2 years that I've been working with her, she told her family about the abuse. It turns out that there were others, and they have confronted the father, and he's been ostracized from the family. She has been working very hard to understand her sexuality and why it's not always healthy. And, why is she sending out these photos? Why is she looking for men in real life? Why does she still masturbate to pornography? And I'm so happy to say that now, 2 years later, she's probably 85% better. She doesn't send out nudes to random guys anymore. She doesn't go and hook up with random guys anymore. She has almost no relationship with her father anymore. She is looking towards her future and is more confident than she's ever been. And it is such a gift to be able to help her. It's such a gift to be able to watch her transformation. There are people who have very crazy stories about their sexuality or different things they did, but seeing this woman transform from such a broken person into a woman who now has confidence, and not just confidence in herself, but confidence in her sexuality and being able to maintain it. It's been such a transformation, and really, like I said, I feel so lucky to be able to watch it.
It's great to have that story. And yeah, there is also research about that one, that more than 60% rape happening within your family circle.
Absolutely.
It's really hard truth.
That's one thing to also mention. Everybody thinks that pornography or pornography addiction leads to acting out, maybe doing horrible things, and there is no scientific connection that says if you view pornography, you will turn into a sex fiend or a sex addict or a sex offender. There is no correlation between those two things. So that's one of those places where people stereotype, and that's important because, like you mentioned, I think I saw a statistic recently that of people who were abused, not just their family but friends and others, it's something like 90% know their victim. It has nothing to do with pornography, and it has to do with being a ill, sick individual.
Yeah. So related to that scientific things, that a German MRI study found that the more the porn a person watches, the less gray matter they have in their reward center. Are we looking at the generations that literally reviewing their brains to numb out really intimacy and joy?
Absolutely, because think about this. Let's say that you have a girlfriend or boyfriend or a husband or a wife. Let's say you've had them for 3 or 4 years. Let's say that you have been regularly intimate with them. You have probably seen your partner naked hundreds of times. You have had sexual relations with your partner hundreds of times. There's nothing left to surprise you. There's nothing left that's going to be new there. Part of our reward center is that we get a bigger hit of dopamine. We get a bigger hit of oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, all of those pleasure chemicals. We get a bigger hit when we see something new. This is why many people who are porn addicts, they will spend extra time looking for the perfect piece to finish with, because they know, oh, I found it. This is the piece that will cause the most. This is the video clip that will cause the most, happiness, that will cause the most pleasure. So they'll spend 30 minutes looking for that final clip. Well, you walk into the bedroom. You've seen this movie 500 times. You know how it ends. This is where many men and many women get to a point that they cannot perform because their partner's body, their partner's sexuality, their own sexuality has been dulled. It's the gray matter thing you talk about. It's the, similar to cocaine addiction. We cause much brain damage when we use cocaine, pornography. What that causes is not just a regular release of dopamine. It causes up to 4 times the amount of dopamine that you should produce naturally. Dopamine is fine. Go running. Have something exciting happen. Dopamine is very natural. However, when you get 4 times what you're supposed to get, it's toxic.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that stuff. And that is where this amount of dopamine is going to dull your pleasure receptors. It's basically just going to burn them. So you need to do more and more and more. Like every addiction, this escalates. And you need to use for longer, or you need to use more exotic or hardcore material to get the same reaction you once did. It's like a gambling addict, starting with $20 for a bet, then doing $50 for a bet, then $100. It's all addiction escalates, and pornography addiction is no different. And quite often, one of the casualties is the healthy sexuality with the partner.
Do you also believe that because of that millions of men are no longer how to be turned on by the real human touch?
100%, because the real human touch also sometimes comes with rejection. The real human touch comes from people who you can't control. The real human touch isn't always a positive experience if it's just not working in bed. But if you think about it, sitting in front of pornography, nobody is ever going to say to you, Samir, you didn't take out the trash. Samir, you're late to work. Samir, you got a bad job on this test. Samir, I don't want to be intimate with you tonight. Nobody on the screen is going to say anything like that.
Exactly.
And then on top of that, because of just the volume, the hundreds of millions of pieces of pornography out there, you can see anything you want. In your real life, statistically, you will never be part of an orgy. That's like 2% of the population.
Yeah.
But you can watch 1,000 different orgies. You can watch all kinds of crazy stuff that you will never hook up in your own life. If you're watching a man and a woman have sex, well, why do I need to have the man there? Let's have 2 women. Push a button. Okay, well,
exactly.
I don't want to watch 2 white women. I want to watch 2 black women. Push a button. Well, why only 2? Why not 3? Push a button. When you think about this, nobody's going to give you any trouble on the screen, and you can see almost anything you've ever wanted to see. That is a huge position of power. that is a huge position of control.
Yeah, agree.
You risk a lot of
Hmm.
your emotion if you try to be intimate, if you try to build a connection with somebody else. You sit down with your phone or your computer, you don't have to worry about your feelings being hurt. You don't have to worry about being rejected. So there are a lot of men and women out there who choose pornography over true human intimacy.
But don't you think that is also affect to the teenagers that who already viewing hardcore porn daily, okay, and starting to believe that women are just things to be used, that women are only used for the objectified, that we can use as a things.
Yes, it's horrible.
Right now,
I
there is no respect I can see that
no,
they
I
having for
saw
the women.
I saw a statistic recently that said a college looked
Hmm.
at 100 videos from the two most popular adult websites. 97, they looked at scenes of one man, one woman.
Hmm.
97%,
Hmm.
97% showed some kind of aggression, either physical or verbal, toward the female.
Agree. Yeah.
You look at these videos and you see men with their hands around women's throats. You see them bending their bodies in a way that regular people don't have sex. And this doesn't even get to the degrading ways that they finish the sexual behavior. This teaches young boys, especially, a
Hmm.
lot of unhealthy sexual beliefs. And what's happening out there when I gave a presentation several years ago at a college to
Hmm.
a woman's sexuality group at a health center at a college.
Hmm.
And I gave my presentation, did the whole song and dance. And at the end, I did my Q&A session. And one young woman said, "Have you heard about how college women don't want to be with virgins?" And I've said, "Not really. Why don't you tell me about this?" And all the girls' eyes lit up. And since then, I've probably asked 500 women about this, and it is true. These college-aged women do not want to have sex with a virgin because these guys have grown up watching porn. And
Hmm.
I've heard stories of the most meek, normal, simple, nice guy. You get him behind closed doors, you start to get intimate, and he throws you on the bed and calls you a bitch because that's what he's watched for the last 5 years of his life. And these women have told me they don't want to be with virgins
Hmm.
because they have to train the virgins how to behave, because they have to train them. No, real sex is not like porn.
Hmm.
We're not going to have a porn scene here. But these guys have grown up on it so much. That's what they believe they're supposed to act like.
Hmm.
And a lot of women this day and age will simply not have any of it. I think that's why you see the rise of things like incel culture, because a lot of women will simply not put out, not have sex, not get intimate with a man that doesn't have some sexual experience, other than thousands of hours of pornography behind them.
Exactly. So the average female porn, the actress retires in less than 3 years.
Mhm.
I'm talking about the average. So often mentioning the severe psychological traumas, cruelty, or abuse. What are your thoughts on the ethical cost of the industry and why are so comfortable using women's trauma for the entertainment?
Because we view these people, especially when they're on a device, not as humans. They are objects. They are just a sack of body parts
But
for
that's a
us to
woman also agreed for that one, right?
both ways. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. People who watch porn, this is why you don't watch porn to find out how artistic somebody is. You don't
Hmm.
watch porn to find out how smart someone is. You
Hmm.
watch porn because you want to see body parts. You want to see sexual activity. And unfortunately, in this industry, it's full of people who have a ton of trauma. It's full of people who have other chemical addictions, and it's full of people who are taken advantage and trafficked by some, very despicable people. That said, you can go back to the 1970s. One of the only things on this world that has ever united hardcore conservatives and hardcore liberal feminists is that pornography is bad. There was a huge push in the 1970s to ban pornography from both of these very diametrically opposed groups. It didn't work. And we've been talking about the conditions for porn stars for years and years. But I think it falls on deaf ears because honestly, if you walk into the kitchen of an Olive Garden, you're going to find a lot of people with trauma. You're going to find people who have drug problems. You're going to find people who have all the problems that people in pornography have. So I think that we just don't relate to them as people. We just don't have empathy for who we see on the screen. I always tell my clients, no statistic is going to get you to stop. You have to find your reason to stop. How is it going to hurt your life personally? Yeah. How is pornography going to cause a problem in your life moving forward? Why must you quit? And I've never heard anybody say, because the actresses are treated horribly. Nobody has ever said that. Because for most people watching pornography, they detach or disassociate that they're watching humans who have parents, who have brothers and sisters, who have kids, who have personal problems, who have to pay their rent. It's just body parts.
Exactly. Right now, even though even the search term, if you can see, right, in the pornography site, that's the stepmom have sex with his own son. The brothers have sex with their own sisters, kind of things.
That's the number one genre in the world is the faux incest genre. It's called faux-cest. That's the number one genre in the world. And everybody denies it has to do with the family relationship and it just has to do with it being sexy, but there's a reason why this genre is so popular, and that's kind of scary.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know where the world is going. That right now there is no value of any relationship right in the world, right? So that's related to the questions that why do women have discovered their partners the porn addiction often feel ashamed, as if they are not hot enough. Instead of furious, their trust was violated. So where does this toxic shame cycle begin?
It usually begins sometime long before they ever met their partner, long before they ever found out that he or she uses pornography. It usually starts out when they're young and they have trauma themselves. And they end up with this partner, and they believe that this partner does not use porn, does not masturbate, that they are the only person in the world who they have sexual feelings about. And this is 100% their belief, 100% their truth. And then they find out it's wrong. This would be like me saying to you, you know who you think your parents are? It's not them. Oh my God, are you serious? Well, if you're with a man or a woman for 10 years, you don't think they ever use pornography, and you find out they've been using pornography for 10 years, usually a couple things happen. And I help many clients. What they experience is known as betrayal trauma. And let's take a woman who discovers her husband is using, for an example.
Okay.
Usually the first phase is wondering what you did wrong. Am I not pretty anymore? Am I not sexy in the bedroom anymore? Am I not enough for him? What's wrong with me? And then they usually figure out very quickly it has nothing to do with me. But then the next stage is, oh my God, he lied to me about this. And I believed him for 10 years. If he can lie to my face about this, what else has he lied about? Does he make the money that he says he makes? The people he talks about at work, are they real? What can I trust? And not just what can I trust that he's told me, how can I trust him moving forward? And then the last phase is, so what do I do? Because so many people, husband and wives especially, you've got a mortgage on your house, you have 2 car payments, you have kids, you have pets. It's not like you're dating this person for 2 weeks and can walk away. If you've been together 10, 20 years, do you unwrap your life? Do you push your partner to recovery if that's what they need? What do you do next? That's a scary place, especially for people as they get older. If you're a 55-year-old woman and you discover that your husband of 25 years has been using pornography, do you really want to hit the dating circuit for the first time since 1995 as a 55-year-old woman? Probably not.
Yeah.
So it's very, very tough for them to figure out how to navigate their partner's problem.
So after they had solution for that, they are living together or they are separated?
It depends on who it is. There is no one solution. So I always, I let these people know that you are going to have to decide if one day, because we all decide, and many people don't realize how many decisions they make in a day. We make decisions nonstop, and they are going to have to decide eventually. It may not be today. They're going to have to decide if they can ever trust this person again. You can think of everybody in your life. You've made a decision whether to trust them or not. And that has to happen here. And when you reach that decision, there are really 3 decisions to have happen. You walk away because you can't trust them. You decide to trust them and they get healthy, and hopefully you live in this is a speed bump and you continue, or your partner won't get help, but you decide that you can't leave, so you're going to ride this roller coaster for the rest of your life because you have some issue with leaving. And as a coach, it's not my job to decide what's best for you. It's my job to show you what the options are, talk through them with you, and help you decide what's best for you. Because what's best for one person may not be best for the next.
I agree. So there is also some argument that sometimes the woman chose to be in a porn, or others call it from the exploitation. So based on your experience, what's the real truth?
I think that as long as you are staying within the bounds of the law, you are free to do whatever you want. And you just have to accept that you may not appreciate and understand what the true consequences will be. I don't want them to ban pornography, because to me, that's banning First Amendment speech. Because to me, that's banning people's choices. I love to go to Las Vegas. I'm not a big gambler at all. I was in Las Vegas a couple months ago for 4 days. I probably lost $75 over 4 days. I pay more for that to see one show. I don't have the gambling addiction gene. I don't, because 10 or 15% of gamblers are addicts. That's terrible. But I don't want you to ban gambling. I don't have the problem.
Hmm.
I don't want you to remove a bunch of food from the supermarket that's not good for you because there are obese people who eat this stuff. I think that we do have free will, and I think that as long as things are legal in this world, we should not be legislating people's behaviors.
Yeah.
We need to be educating them on what the best choices are to make.
Right. So, do you believe that the many women describe the discovering their partner's porn use as a worse than infidelity? What have your client told you in their rawest moments?
Many, yes, do view this as infidelity. And many people also say it's not cheating. But I understand how you can say looking at pornography is cheating, because cheating is simply breaking the rules. If you are playing cards and you stick some aces up your sleeve, you take them out at the right time, that's cheating. That's breaking the rules. If you go take a test at school and you've got the answers on your hand, that's cheating. That's breaking the rules. So, if you and your partner have a conversation and you agree that you will not use pornography, you will not view it, you will not masturbate with it, and then you go ahead and do that, you're breaking one of the rules of your relationship. I'm guessing not lying is also a rule, so you're breaking both of those rules. That's cheating. You're breaking the rules, trying to get away with something. That's cheating. Is it infidelity having sex with somebody? No, of course it's not. But it can still be viewed as a form of cheating.